And now, The Mike Miller Show.
Run, Liz, run, Liz. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know I was back on the air. See, Jessica, I just can't get that song out of my mind, man.
It's so entertaining.
Run, Liz, run. Anyway, in an effort to get that song out of my mind, we have Michael Hausum, IJR's Michael Hausum, the host, we announced earlier, of the Michael Hausum Show, which will premiere on Truth Be Told Media tomorrow at 5 o'clock Eastern Time. Michael, welcome and congrats, brother.
Thank you, brother. How totally fun, right?
Oh, I'm telling you what. It's, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. We will have to cross-pollinate one of those shows.
Oh, no question about it, man. Right? Yeah. And it's fun because I know that there's going to be at least 2 listeners because my parents have already told me they're going to log in on 2 separate computers. So I've already got an audience.
Well, there you go. So, I mean, but anyway, yeah, I think it's great. And, I mean, I think I know what your show will be about, but I mean, what are your thoughts before we dig into the stuff, as it were, about, like, how's this thing going to go down? I mean, how are you going to do your show?
Well, I like to think that my insights and thoughts are witty and brilliant, as well as reasoned and well supported with fact and logic.
So what you're saying is you're going to copy my show.
I'm just going to kind of make stuff up.
Dude, that was a softball right down the middle of the plate.
Right?
But no, I mean, you are. And that's why you and I, you know, we call each other brother, or, you know, I say we're brothers from another mother, but that's how Hausum is. And,
well, except for the other day, you came out referring to me as Junior.
Junior. Should we explain that?
Yes.
Which I think, frankly, was merely an acknowledgement as to the generational gap age-wise.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's run with that if you'd like to. I think that
as opposed to a like senpai-kopai relationship or a de facto mentoring status.
Well, no. Let's explain to Jessica and the listeners what precipitated me calling you Junior over the weekend. So, Jessica, you know this. We post occasionally. It's called NewsWeb, but we post the rankings of who's a top dog through however many on social media for a particular day. Right? You've seen those?
Oh yeah, you sent me that before. I saw that.
Yeah. See, Hausum, I brag too. So anyway, so Michael, I think the first one you posted, you and I were somewhat down the list, and then the second one, you were number 1 and I was number 2. Am I recalling that properly?
You know, I have absolutely no idea where you were on that list.
See, he makes my point. So he posts the second one. What I just said was true, by the way. So he posts the second one. He's number 1. I'm number 2. Apparently the red hat in the picture didn't even catch his attention. So he posts this thing and he says better, which I'm taking as, you know, I'm number 2, he's number 1, and whatever have you. So I said something. I don't even know what I said. Like, thanks for the update, Junior. And that's how this whole thing started. So Hausum responds with Junior, LOL, perfect, or whatever. So anyway,
well, the reality is, Mike, that it's funny. Over the last few weekends, I have gotten, and I'm going to say it in a particular way that's extraordinarily self-affirming. I've gotten to be the number 1 content creator on the planet Earth just about every weekend over the last couple of months at some point.
You have been.
Right. Now, you and I know that that's because anybody that actually does anything of note doesn't work on the weekends. and the traffic is lower, so it's far easier for a guy like me to actually break into the top, but I choose not to point out that thing.
No, but I mean, you rocked it this weekend, and you rock it about every weekend. I just thought you'd noticed that I actually showed up a little bit on Saturday. I mean,
I did. In fact, well, because here's the thing, dude, is that you're in the top 5 7 days a week because of the stuff that you put up. I have to wait until everybody goes on vacation and put up a picture of, you know, a kitten with a little quadriplegic girl saving the life of an Army veteran before people notice what I put up.
Anyway, he's being modest. Listen, I'm really excited. I mean, you're going to move on and talk about stuff because you know how long it takes us to get just through one story. But sure. I'm really excited that you're coming aboard because I think that, I mean, you have a great following on IJR. You have a great following on Twitter, which is
at MP House. Thank you.
Exactly. And you're going to have a great following on the show. I mean, you're on what? Rick Amato's show on a regular basis. You've been a guest on the Dennis Miller Show with our own Larry O'Connor. And
right.
You're great at this stuff. Dude, I've even watched some of your video clips and I'm jealous. I mean, I think you're awesome. So this is going to be a great addition to Truth Be Told Media.
Well, obviously, you've already gone to the bank this morning and verified the check was going to clear before saying that stuff, so thank you.
Right. Well, I only accept wire transfers. But anyway, you had some great stuff over the weekend and Friday as well. This right-to-work study thing.
Oh, right.
Did it not completely destroy Obama's claim that, again, the whole union thing, that helps the economy?
Oh, that was stunning. In fact, this really happened. This was a cool thing that happened, Mike. There was something I put up a week or two ago, and I don't exactly remember what it was. It was some national study thing that I think I got from Mercatus Center or something like that. Mm-hmm. And a guy that follows me on Twitter works for Competitive Enterprise Institute. And he's like, dude, we do this kind of stuff all day long. I'll start feeding you studies and information. So on Friday, he sent me the results of the study that Competitive Enterprise just came out with, and it was on this particular issue. And frankly, it was awesome, dude. The guy kind of pre-wrote the thing for me and said, hey, here's all the information that we came up with. Have fun with it. And it's actually, I mean, the results of this are mind-blowing. Especially in the context of the president's claim and speech in December a year and a half ago. That was right at the time that Michigan was considering right-to-work laws.
Right. Do we need to hear that, by the way? I mean, I just sent it to Jessica. If we don't, no problem. If you want to hear it, we can do that.
I think so, because it's so, you know, one of the things that I really like about both the internet, that things don't disappear, and one of the things I like about what we do is there's all of these ideas and claims that are out there. You know, Obama's done a really good job with what he's received. His policies are working. You know, there's actually nothing wrong on the face with what the Democratic structure and the Democratic prescriptions for that which ails us are. You know, things like that. I mean, those are the Twitter, Facebook, over a beer talking points.
Sure.
And at times, we might have no, right-to-work laws are better. And that's more of a theoretical or a philosophical construct or position. But stuff like this that actually is, okay, this is proof of why forced unionism or right-to-work rejection is actually painful and harmful. I mean, this type of thing
there's
to me,
no doubt.
You know, now on one hand, this kind of stuff is just snoozeville. So you have to be careful. Well, here's the result of a 2,500 person study on, and people are immediately asleep. So to be able to take it into something, my idea is to try to put it in a way that somebody could put it in their quiver. When something comes up in some sort of conversation or whatever, people can reach over their shoulder, grab the arrow, stick it in their bow, poof, and blow it out. You know what I mean?
And you know what? I mean, to your point, I mean, it might be snoozeville as it relates to a detailed study full of data and so forth. But when it comes down to everyday life, real America, Main Street. This is critical stuff, and it's important.
It is critical stuff. And it'll actually, I don't know if I sent it to you, we should probably talk about the change that happened with Obamacare as far as the U.S. territories. We'll pull that up in a second. But it's things like this that the administration says and does that are the reason we're in the difficulty we are. Now, quick background for those that aren't totally initiated. Right-to-work laws, basically it's states that allow people to work in companies without being forced to join a union. Right. There are 24 states right now across the country. This post has the pictures of them that actually have right-to-work laws. So you can go work for a company, and not even if it's a union shop, that you actually could join the company, work for them, and not join the union. Right.
And that's an important distinction because we talked last week, and I've talked frequently and written frequently about the UAW's incessant desire to infiltrate a foreign auto manufacturer plant in the U.S. They've been trying since 1983, the first such plant, a Honda plant in Marysville, Ohio, and they're for however many times they tried. But what Michael just said is important. In a right-to-work state, Indiana being one of them, by the way, former Governor Mitch Daniels made that happen a few years ago, but in a right-to-work state, you can go to work in a union shop and not have to join the union.
Right. In California, on the other hand, which is so surprising to me. Kidding.
Shocking.
That you could actually, you have to join the union. Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So why don't you play that clip? Let's hear, and to set this up, Michigan, which has always been, big shocker, a forced unionism state. There were no right-to-work laws. In December of 2012, Michigan passed right-to-work laws, and the auto workers union went absolutely nuts. And this little clip that you're going to play is the president, December 2012, speaking in front of a bunch of UAW workers.
We're moving in the right direction. We're going forward. So what we need to do is simple. We need to keep going. We need to keep going forward. We should do everything we can to keep creating good middle-class jobs that help folks rebuild security for their families. And we should do everything we can to encourage companies like Daimler to keep investing in American workers. And by the way, what we shouldn't do, I just got to say this, what we shouldn't be doing is trying to take away your rights to bargain for better wages or working for better. We shouldn't be doing that. These so-called right-to-work laws, they don't have to do with economics. They have everything to do with politics. What they're really talking about is giving you the right to work for less money. You only have to look to Michigan, where workers were instrumental in reviving the auto industry, to see how unions have helped build not just a stronger middle class, but a stronger America.
You know, I mean, before we get to the substance of this, back to the substance of it, what is the deal with him when he gets when he knows he's got the crowd, which he always has because he goes to college campuses and union halls and whatever have you.
Right.
But once he gets the crowd and he gets into this, like he did in this clip, what the hell is that all about? I don't understand that whole, maybe he's just so, I don't know. But anyway.
I think that's a cultural thing. It's like, listen to a traditional black preacher. That is a rhetorical device to get the crowd moving with you.
All right.
At least that's my read on it.
Yeah.
I mean, and a not so subtle connection to a Messiah spiritual leader implication with that, by the way.
There you go. I mean, you just hit the nail square on the head.
Right?
So anyway, yeah. So
what he's saying, two things here, is that number one, that the economics of right-to-work laws are bad, and the economics of forced unionism are good, and any contradiction to that is merely political rhetoric. That's his point, right?
No, that's what they say. And, of course, logic, data, facts, history all fly in the face of that.
Yeah, well, that's the study. The facts are that on the wages part, what the Competitive Enterprise Institute did is they did a study of statewide economic activity from the late 70s through 2012, setting out right-to-work states. And, I mean, it's just a bunch of postgraduate economic doctoral guys that sit around and sift this data, right? I mean, I've got a degree in economics, and even just the thought of going through that stuff makes me want to put a bullet in my head, right? But so here's what they came up with quickly on wages. In forced unionism states, the average family of four loses roughly $1,000 a month. Little slightly north of $1,100 a month, number one. Mm-hmm. Number two, right-to-work states have gains in population, whereas forced unionism states have had net losses, commonly known as people voting with their feet. People move from Ohio to Indiana, from Illinois to anywhere else, from California to Texas. You know how that goes, right?
And let me just interject quickly. When and I don't know how familiar you are with Mitch Daniels. I think he's the kind of guy that if you had to go in for an interview for president and fill out an application, he would win hands down. Of course, his wife won't let him run. Mm-hmm. But Mitch was lambasted by the left and the unions when he was pushing through the right-to-work law here in Indiana, and it has done nothing but good for this state. People, right. To your point, Michael, people are moving here because of it.
Right. Well, it's only doing good in the sense for states. Let's figure the last three things here. The last two things. Number one, states with right to work have a much higher growth of jobs. And then countrywide, the total loss of income because of the impact of lack of right to work laws is roughly $2,000 per American. So with that as kind of the tableau, those four things, it only works for the state in the sense if your state is interested in increased wages, increased population, increased jobs, and reducing loss of income.
So if you're interested in things beyond those, Democrat
then it might not be a win.
To labor unions for money, this is not for you.
Oh, exactly. Right. So when put clearer, if the president wanted personal income growth and job growth to increase, he should be standing up, criticizing forced unionism and trumpeting those states that have adopted right-to-work laws, and the most recent ones being Indiana and Michigan as examples of the positive effect.
But see, that would throw a monkey wrench, a huge monkey wrench, in the drive to expand the permanent underclass to at least 51%.
Well, exactly. I mean, think about how much money those unions have spent in supporting his shtick. If he comes out and says, it's good for me political to go pro-union, but it's bad for everybody that actually lives within the confines of the country. I mean, that's what he would, in effect, have to say, right?
Yeah. It's not... It's not... actually a microcosm of to an extent it is, of the failed states of Europe But one need only look at the UAW and what it did to Detroit. I mean, and Detroit's got problems beyond, obviously, the UAW, but it damn near destroyed the American automobile industry, did it not?
It totally did, absolutely. Yep.
All right, so listen, this is
the new plants are going into anywhere but Michigan and Illinois.
Exactly.
Right.
So anyway, this is I suppose next, a good lead-in into this Obamacare blanket exception. Who knew that you might want to, you said, move to Guam or Puerto Rico?
Right. Frankly, I've looked into it a little further, and we can actually set up shop, Miller, in U.S. Virgin Islands. So that would
there
be
you go. See, because I've been to Puerto Rico, and dude, I'm telling you, mobile homes. I mean, between the airport and the hotel zone, mobile homes have bars on the windows, and I'm not being facetious. So yeah, and Guam's too far away, but the Virgin Islands, I think I can get down on that.
Mm-hmm. So that's an option.
All right.
Well, it's interesting. What happened last week is that the Department of Health and Human Services just basically came out with a statement that a bunch of Obamacare regulations that were supposed to have applied in the territories no longer do.
Right.
And there are a couple things that were interesting about it. Number one is that Health and Human Services official a year and a half ago made a clear statement that Health and Human Services was not authorized to choose which provision would and would not apply, that was a congressional issue, that it literally was a function of law, and so they couldn't just interpret or dictate what did or did not apply. That was a year and a half ago, you know.
Mm-hmm.
In the olden days when we didn't have this new perspective of a pen and a phone, essentially.
Right.
So what they came out and said is that now a bunch of different things that the territories were supposed to do, they no longer have to.
So why do you think they did that? Why do you think he did that? I mean, I understand all of the delays, the pen and the phone, changing the employee mandate, the individual mandate. You know, I have lost track of how many times he's rewritten the law. I mean, I understand that because he's thinking about the midterms and so forth. But why this?
My thought is that the way the whole deal is set up is basically a guaranteed revenue and therefore guaranteed profit stream for the insurance companies. That if their profits aren't there, then the government's going to kick in more money for them, right?
Now, well, go ahead and then I'll comment, yeah.
Without the individual mandate and the subsidies, which the territories were never subject to the individual mandate and the premium subsidies, the insurance companies had to comply to all these extraordinarily expensive requirements, but they didn't have the guaranteed revenues.
Yes. However, let me say this before the break. We got a couple of minutes, but I'm of the mind that he doesn't want the insurance companies to realize a profit, that in fact, much like he wants to do to most of America, he wants to bring the insurance companies to their knees, bail them out so that they will initially be beholden to the government and ultimately will go away in anticipation and preparation for a single-payer system. So I don't know.
Yeah, interesting. We could probably argue about that a little. I think there's enough money from the insurance companies into his campaign and support. You know, they're not pro-market; they're pro-business.
Right.
So I think this is an aspect of cronyism is actually what's happening.
I think that's probably the initial stage, but there are also rumblings of plans ultimately to bail them out if need be. So, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, that's probably something we can talk about. Listen, we're coming up on the bottom of the hour, and we've talked about 2 of the 5 things that we want to talk about. So we're making progress. Michael Hausum and I will be back after the news. Back on Truth Be Told Media, the new home of Daily Paul Radio, with our newest host, Michael Hausum, who's the Michael Hausum Show, I'm guessing. Or is it going to be House Rules, Hausum? What are you going to call it?
I think I'm going to go with House Rules Radio with Michael Hausum or something.
I like that. I think I like that. So anyway, that premieres tomorrow, Tuesday at 5 o'clock Eastern Time. So I will be listening. So you can add me to the list of your parents, and by my calculation, I just increased your listenership by, what, 50%?
That would be 50%, math major. That's exactly right.
I'm kidding. Anyway.
That's funny.
Yeah, I know. I'm just, what are you going to do? 8 rock-solid points in defense of Israel. I have been a staunch and vehement, if you will, supporter of Israel since I can remember. So this was outstanding because it's Bill Maher, of all people, right?
Right, Bill Maher. Shocking.
Absolutely shocking. But you know, like, I've done some of the stuff he said in the past, and every once in a while, I don't know what happens to him. He comes out and makes sense and loses the bitterness and the hyperbolic liberalism and makes some sense. And he did here, didn't he?
Oh, he absolutely did. And I think part of it with Bill, he's a leftist. My friend Evan Sayet used to write for him for 5 years.
I did not know that. I love Evan.
Yeah. He was the head, he was the head writer on Bill Maher's show when Maher was back in New York for 5 or 6 years.
I did not know that. I met him at CPAC, by the way, but I digress. Anyway, yeah, Maher. Let's talk about this.
Yeah, so he had Jamie Weinstein of the Daily Caller on, who's a big conservative, and then big lefty Jane Harmon on, who was kind of left in the dust with the discussion. But Maher came out, they were talking about the whole Israel-Gaza-Palestinian thing, and, it's kind of a long clip, but there are, I counted and figured 8 distinct points that he made that were shockingly, strongly in defense of Israel. Uh-oh, Michael?
As we know, Michael, the left...
lost you there, sorry.
The left hates Israel, from Selena to Selena Gomez to... Well, this is shocking. So the 8 points being...
Number 1, the Palestinians do not have the moral high ground. Number 2, the death of innocents in Palestine is their fault for firing rockets at Israel in the first place. Number 3, Hamas would kill all Israelis if they could, but even though Israel does have that ability, they do not. Number 4, Israel must win every single military conflict in order to survive. The Israeli focus on science technology vastly exceeds that of the Arab world. Israelis are right to consider threats to their lives as more important than world opinion. Palestinians seem to have choosing to be angry refugees as a way of life. You know what? There's an error in that. Palestinians seem to have chosen to be angry refugees as a way of life. And then lastly, Israel isn't going anywhere, and the rest of the world needs to face up to that fact.
And again, spot on. So let's go back through a couple of these and kind of take them apart. And I think most importantly, and this gets to Selena Gomez and the hand-wringing on the left, the death of civilians and it's not Palestine. It's in a territory, Gaza, that was given to them But anyway, the death of civilians is not only calculated by, well, it's calculated by Hamas, because they're putting rockets in homes, they're putting them in schools, and they want the death toll of Palestinians to rise for propaganda purposes, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, part of the context of this was, and I had put this story up a few days earlier, Bibi Netanyahu's comment that Israel uses missiles to protect their civilians, and Hamas uses civilians to protect their missiles. I mean, they are, and this was kind of to Bill's point, is that they're literally shooting rockets out of the windows where families live, or schools, or places like that, so that when the inevitable, anticipated, planned for military response from Israel occurs, there will intentionally be innocent civilians impacted by that response.
I have a story that I did not get to today, given that I was just did an hour before you came on. But Hamas, I'm going to do this tomorrow, you guys. But Hamas is instructing people how to lie about civilian casualties. And to your point about the homes, just today a rocket was fired that killed, was it yesterday? Maybe, I don't know, but fire that killed 13 IDF forces, including two Americans who were over there to fight. So they're exactly doing that.
Right. Yeah, it's intentional. So, and Maher's point was, hey, you know what? You're bringing this on yourself, you morons. There's no other way to look at it.
There's no question. And this notion, I mean, Kerry talks about it, Obama. How many times has he tried to take Bibi behind the woodshed? He used a press conference this morning to chastise Israel for Palestinian civilian deaths. But I just get beside myself. Listen, the notion that Hamas, and this is where I was headed. I lost my train of thought there for a second, but that Hamas, the Palestinians, the Arab world for that matter, most of it anyway, would agree to a peace treaty, a true peace treaty, and mean it and honor it with Israel is it's ridiculous. They want to end Israel, as someone said years ago. They want to push Israel into the sea. They would not be happy until every Israeli was dead, would they not?
Well, absolutely. In fact, my good friend has his Twitter handle is Lemons Barber, and he got engaged. Yes, he's hilarious. Got engaged in a Twitter conversation with a guy over the weekend about this, and so Lemons Barber was just listing comments from Hamas's charter, specifically with regard to the existence of Jews and Israel. And I mean, it's in Hamas's charter to bring about the death of Jews and Israelis.
Exactly. I mean, how many times was Yasser Arafat, I mean, we can go back decades, offered a deal that he had originally asked for, and it was rejected by the Palestinians.
Because it includes, even though they're getting what they want for themselves, it inevitably includes some sort of legal right to existence for the state of Israel, and that's something that they can't accept.
Exactly.
Which is a very interesting point, the one that he made, where if Hamas had the military ability, if they had the technology, they would kill all the Jews. I mean, they would.
There's no question. Just listen to ISIS talk right now.
Right? Now, Israel, with its nuclear capability and its non-nuclear military technology, actually could destroy all of Palestine, Gaza, and Hamas. They
in a nanosecond.
But they don't.
You and I talked about this last week, and you made the point correctly that, or the analogy. What if 80% of the United States, that would be roughly 240, 250 million Americans at any given notice were warned to head to bomb shelters because someone in Mexico was indiscriminately firing rockets into the country. I mean, how long would we put up with that? Yet we have the left, and surprisingly, again, Bill Maher coming down on the right side, but we have the left condemning Israel for responding.
Yeah. It's Americans wouldn't handle that for 2 seconds. You know, an interesting side note about this. It's a Mediaite video. It's 6 minutes long, but I copied it and put it on my own YouTube page. And even since we've been talking, Mike, there's probably been, if I count them real quick, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 comments about this particular video and another one that I put up between Jon Stewart and Mark Levin. I've never had more incredibly angry, upset comments on anything I've ever done than these two Israel-Palestine videos. It has completely shocked me how many times, just a general FU statement I've received. But, I mean, they're
welcome to that club, yeah.
Which it kind of makes me feel like I'm doing something right. But I would say that this Israel-Palestinian thing has resulted in a response at least 100 times higher, maybe 1,000 times higher than anything else I've done ever.
Do you think that the virulent crap on the left, I don't know what else to call it, is A, more in support of the Palestinians, or B, more in condemnation of Israel and just overall hatred for that whole deal?
Oh, I think it's absolutely condemnation of Israel.
I do too.
If it were a bunch of atheist Scandinavians that were surrounding Israel, I don't think the response would be any different. I don't think there's any pro-Palestinian, pro-Muslim. I don't think it's that at all. That just happens to be who Israel's crazy neighbors are. I don't think it's anything particular for them. I think it's all particular about Israel.
So imagine, if you will, folks, the response from the loons, the moonbats, whatever you want to call them in this country. Imagine the response, Michael, if Israel, in effect, had Sharia law. If Israel stoned to death homosexuals. If Israel stoned to death people accused of accused of adultery because they were raped and didn't have 42 guys to back up the rape charge. Michael, can you imagine if Israel was doing what the Arab world was doing to women, what the outcry would be on the left?
Oh my gosh. Nuts. I mean, all for whatever reason, the Sharia type countries get a war on women pass. But if Israel was doing that, no question about it.
You know, I mean, if Israel just denied driver's licenses to women like Saudi Arabia does, it would be, I mean, there would be specials. Brian Williams would be having a special in prime time about that.
Oh, could you imagine if Israel came out and said, hey, possession of a vagina and breasts make it impossible for you to drive successfully? I mean, they would go nuts.
And this is why you and I make a living and also have a ball pointing out the hypocrisy of the left. Because, so again, I mean, and you and I have talked about this before, and we have other stuff to get to, but just in general, 25 words or less so we can move on, why do you think the answer was B? Why do you think the left has this irrational hatred of Israel? I guess that can't be answered in 25 words or less.
You know what? Honestly, I don't know. I think it may be a historical thing to do with Jewish culture being one of intermediaries in terms of banking and trade. I mean, that goes all the way back to Merchant of Venice.
I hear you, but I don't think people like Selena Gomez are that smart. I don't think they have any idea what you just said. No, zero concept.
No, so I don't know, because odds are.
Is it because of religion in general?
You know what? I don't know, man. Because you got to think that Selena Gomez, her internist and her accountant and her attorneys are Jewish, right? I mean, aren't the odds of that?
One would assume, but then the fly in the ointment of what I just said, I mean, to an extent, is as it relates to the religious thing, is one might argue, albeit warped and extremist, that the Islamists are doing what they do for religious purposes. But so I don't know, man. That we could probably do a whole segment on that sometime. I mean, I just don't get it. And I don't know that I ever will. It's just, there is just this virulent, and it's hilarious, and Gomez isn't the only one. There's 2 or 3 examples over the weekend of people tweeting, hashtag Free Palestine, hashtag support Palestine, and then removing it immediately. Why do you think they remove it immediately? Do you think their agents call them and tell them not a good career thing? Or certainly they thought it when they said it. They don't have second thoughts, do they?
Oh, I think it absolutely has to do with career stuff. Marty Feldbein is currently negotiating the new deal with Benjamin Lowenstein at United Pictures, and that tweet gets faxed over to him as they're doing it, and there's like, what are you freaking talking about? I mean, I'm kind of joking with that, but my guess would be that their PR guy says, it's one thing to call conservatives teabaggers and racist. It's another thing to publicly come out and say that Israel is evil. It could be just as simple as that, Mike.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's just I will never completely understand it. Listen, let's talk about, I love this post you did as well, second time's a charm. Failed renewable energy loan program that cost billions with a B. Back in business, right?
Yeah, I just can't believe, other than perhaps it is just a doubling down on bad ideas.
Which the Democrats never do.
Yeah, because the only problem with any failed program is it was insufficiently funded, right?
Exactly.
But just, the case I make for it is definitionally the reason why the government is in the green energy federal loan guarantee business is because either A, the capital markets won't finance those deals, or B, the risk premium they assign to those deals make them economically impossible to complete. But one way or the other, the government is in the co-signing business for technology that can't stand on its own is really what's happening.
Right. I mean, I just read I'm reading the opening paragraph of your post, which, again, up on IJR, the Department of Energy announced that is now taking applications for up to $4 billion of federal loan guarantees for renewable and energy efficient projects. And that's like something off of, in light of what's happened, that's like something off a Saturday Night Live weekend update, isn't it?
Right. Oh, you know what? I actually, when I was thinking of this, when I wrote that sentence, I was thinking that'd be a perfect parody article for The Onion.
Exactly. Exactly. Right? And Michael has a picture of the Solyndra logo on the building, and we all know how many hundreds of millions were flushed down the green only energy toilet taxpayer dollars by Obama on Solyndra.
Right. It's only $535 million. Also, when announcing it, the Energy Secretary said that so far losses of the program have been well under the $10 billion limit that Congress set. Yeah, that's not a joke. I mean, it's hilarious.
I know. That's why I'm laughing.
Yeah.
I don't know. And listen, I mean, I think you and I agree. I think that researching, exploring alternative energy sources is a good thing. But it's when the government tries to mandate by ideology. I mean, let's face it. It's an ideological battle. What did Obama say? Under my energy policy, electricity costs would necessarily skyrocket. I mean, this is an ideological mission for these people, is it not?
Well, it certainly is, and it's interesting. It's one of the rare occasions where Obama is applying traditional economic, traditional liberal economic theory that as prices increase, demand will decrease. So if the idea is if all of a sudden your electric bill is $2,500 a month and it costs you $800 to fill up your car with gasoline, you will come up with alternatives to that.
Yeah. And what'd you call it? Liberal economic what?
Traditional classical liberal economic theory, capitalism.
Okay. Isn't liberal economic theory mutually exclusive? I mean, I don't. What I'm saying is, when in history has liberal economic theory thrived?
Well, Keynes and not Keynes, but von Mises or Milton Friedman would describe themselves as classical liberals.
Right.
Liberal being the old-fashioned idea of freedom and laissez-faire. That would be classical liberalism.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't translate to America. Here in America, liberal economic theory is not classical capitalist economics. Sorry.
You know how they love to ridicule what they call trickle down, and they love to talk about, Obama likes to talk about growing the economy from the middle out and the like, but I don't know. I'm not the sharpest crayon in the box, but it seems to me that if you don't have somebody with money at the top creating an idea or a company and creating jobs, you're pretty much dead in the water.
Well, exactly. So the idea of there actually is no official trickle-down economic theory. It was something that George Bush applied to criticizing Ronald Reagan. And you had a business, I had a business. Even though we were at the top of those businesses as capitalists, everybody else got paid first.
Exactly. You're exactly right. There were times early on when I was worrying if I was going to make my mortgage payment, but I made sure my people got paid.
Absolutely. The landlord gets his check up front. The people delivering the furniture or the equipment or the internet service or the papers or the furniture or the staffers, they all get paid. The idea is hopefully something is left over at the end.
And as I grew my firm, I hired more people. If the people I hired, according to the Obama theory, if that worked, those people would have, caused me to hire more people. Listen, we got a few minutes left. We got to change gears here a little bit because you and I are both dads. You're a dad of young children. I'm a granddad now, but this Florida dad that just beat the hell out of this guy that he walked in and caught in the act of sodomizing his 12-year-old son. I probably would have killed him, but what are you thinking about this?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, the guy in one of the interviews said that it was his belief in God that kept him from killing this guy. Apparently, they've also, determined in the investigation that it's been ongoing for years. So the guy walks in, beats the crap out of the guy. And I just loved what he had to say to the 911 guy. He called 911 and said, hey, I just walked in on a grown man molesting, and I got him in a bloody puddle for you, officer.
I love that. I did what I had to do, but he's not dead or whatever. I'm paraphrasing. But incidentally, Michael has a post on IJR. He put it up Saturday. Send an ambulance, how a Florida dad reacted to a perp caught in the act with his 12-year-old son. It's only gotten, as I'm looking at it now, 209,000 views and 54,659 shares. So I'm thinking that this story connects with a lot of dads out there.
Oh, it connects with everybody. And the police officer was so awesome. The police officer's response to the whole thing, because the dad was not charged, said, hey, dad was acting like a dad. I don't see anything we could charge the dad with. You've had an 18-year-old who has clearly picked his target, groomed his target, had sex with the victim multiple times. When the victim sat on the 18-year-old's lap, he knew what was next. The young man was in fear that if he didn't comply, he would get hurt. The dad beat the crap out of him. And Mike, when all the investigators showed up, when the cops were there and all that, at one way or another, they gave the guy a fist bump or a thumbs up or a wink or a hug.
I'm guessing this kid, and incidentally, if you've not seen an image of the beatdown this guy received at the hands of this dad, check it out on IJR, Michael Hausum's post. But this guy's probably not going to have a real good time in prison, because there tends to be a bit of a thing against child rapists in prison, does there not?
Yeah. This guy, unless he's in solitary, is not long for this world.
No, and this guy was I think maybe a next door neighbor. I mean, I think someone said, I don't know that it was the dad, but someone said that he was like a member of the family, or at least they knew him well. Anyway, we got about 10 seconds to go, and I just want to say again, Michael Hausum, the host of Hausum, what is it? Hausum
House Rules.